And we'll let get started with John Eberle. And I have a very reliable remote control, and it's Jesse. So Jesse, we're ready to get started. And you can just go ahead and roll. I'll fill in between. John was born in Nassau County, spent some time in the Air Force. He was able to work the 1964 World's Fair and the Futurama exhibit for General Motors, and as a result of that was hired on full-time by the Oldsmobile division. Worked there until the Call of Music grabbed hold of him, and he and his wife moved to Nashville in 1969 without any career plans here. Went to work for Winter Boats, mechanical things. And in 1972, there was a lady that had worked with him at Winter Boats. She went to work for George Ingram at Nashville Record Productions, and that led to John being hired. Next slide. Larry Bowden, some of you know, still around. In 2000, Nashville Record Productions downsized, and John bought a lot of the equipment they had there and started his own company, Americana Mastering. And let's see the interviews. Oh, some of the credits. Next.
John Eberle came to Nashville because his father was transferred from New Jersey to here, and his dad worked with Schrader Valve, which makes valve stems, all types of specialty valves. And so John ended up moving here. He worked at a company called Winter Boats, which made fiberglass boats for a while. And there he met a lady named Alma Cato. Alma ended up coming to work for me, and that's how I got introduced to John. Nashville Record Productions was expanding very fast, and we bought a lathe out of Pittsburgh, a company called WRS, and went up and got it, and added a cutting system, updated the system, and we were looking for somebody to actually run that lathe. And so John had come to us probably 6 months prior to that, and we had a mono cutting system. We were doing a lot of mono stuff, which was basically like the Ralph Emery shows, to Tommy Cottrell, a lot of syndicated radio shows. And so John was working on the radio shows. And when we bought the new system, we actually put him on the stereo cutting system. The stereo was a big deal back then. And from that, between myself and a gentleman named Larry Bowden, which you probably know very well, we gave him the very basics of disc cutting and stuff. And John picked it up and was really enthused about it, and read all the books, and really got involved in it.
I first met John, it's been over 40 years now, in 1976. I was hired by Nashville Record Productions to be the editing, tape copy, and shipping guy. And I was not long out of college and very short on knowledge. But I'm still forever grateful for that job because it was my first real job in the music business. John somehow always made me feel like I was a vital part of everything that was going on there, even though I knew that I was, the dream kid. He always took time to answer questions for me and share his knowledge, and for you that know John very well know his knowledge is quite extensive in many areas.
The Gem was extremely popular. It came out, I think, about 1902. Original ones had the same basic setup, except it had a key wind here rather than a little handle here. And it was the price leader. It was the one to get you started in making a cylinder collection. And it works fairly well, and will also work with a larger horn. It's an amazing little piece of machinery.
One of the reasons that I considered John was because of his love for recorded music in almost any form, whether it was cylinders, 78s, as we used to say, like Thomas said, that's from tinfoil to stereo. So, I mean, he was very interested in it, top to bottom.
I remember sometimes thinking that he seemed almost too intellectual to be in the music business. Maybe he was fooling us all, I don't know. But I know sometimes I'd ask John a question, and by the time he would answer it, he had gotten so technical and gone down so many avenues to get there that I sometimes thought I knew less about it than more about it when he was done. And I think he enjoyed doing that because it seemed to happen with great frequencies there.
John was quite the character, and a lot of times he was accused of, if you asked him what time it was, he'd tell you how to make a watch. And he's a real conversationalist, as you know, you was around him. And I think some of the probably more humorous stuff was we did a project where we put 6 grooves on a side of a record, which was unheard of at that time. And there was times when John would leave the studio screaming, "Stop it, you can't make me do this anymore," because it was a very frustrating project. Took about 6 months to get it done.
But I would watch John when I could in the mastering room, how meticulous he was and how caring he was with every project that he was doing, whether it be something for a major label or something for no label at all. He always seemed to work just as hard to try to achieve perfection. And I know that was a huge influence on me that you know, all things were equal.
You know, John, I hope your health gets better. And we were always a good team. And we had our ups and downs. But, you know, anytime you work with somebody 27 years, it all can't be perfect. But it all worked out in the end.
I just want to say to John, congratulations on this well-deserved honor. But most of all, I just want to thank you for being my friend. Good luck.
Trails to lead old cowboys home again.
I have here, I have 11 pages of single-space stuff from 1971 to 2014 of things that John mastered. And you saw from the video, he's also an enthusiast for Edison cylinders and then players. He has about 27 in his collection. He's quite an expert on that. As was mentioned in the video, John's health has not been good recently. He just got home from an extended stay in the hospital yesterday, and he's taken the time to go see his grandson, who is entering into the Navy on Monday. So accepting for Mr. John Eberle is Mr. Mike Bradley, a 2016 recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Mike?
I'll open this because old people tend to ramble sometimes. I truly wish that John could be here today to accept this in person. Much deserved award. I have a feeling if he were, he would be able to express his appreciation to you in probably 10,000 words or more. I know he wants to thank his family for their support and understanding of a very crazy business where maybe the only certainties in it is the uncertainty. I know he's very thankful to George and Larry and Glenn and all the guys at Nashville Record Productions, where he, spent a good part of his life. The many years there doing the final touches on probably hundreds and hundreds of pieces of music and recordings. John, like most mastering engineers, spent most of his life not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of the studio. We know the artist, and sometimes we know the producers, but we rarely know those behind the scenes. And that, to me, is why this award is so significant and so appreciated by so many of us. And on behalf of John Eberle, I want to thank Mike and the entire board and membership of the Nashville AES chapter for making this possible again. And I gladly and humbly accept this award for John. Thank you very much.